Hey everyone, it's Alyssa here with Darn Good Yarn, and today we're going to be learning how to knit. I've got here with me a US 8 5mm set of knitting needles and some sparkle worsted weight yarn in the classic blue colorway. The first thing you're going to want to do is create a slip knot. There are a whole bunch of different techniques to create a slip knot, but here is one that I enjoy. The first thing you do is you hold on to the tail of your yarn and then stick your pointer finger out, wrap it around twice, pull that back loop over the front loop, wrap around one more time, and pull that back loop over the front loop again. That creates your slip knot. Slip knot is just a knot that is adjustable. You might know this knot from tying balloons to children's wrists. That's what I know it from anyway. The next thing that you're going to want to do is cast on. The first thing I'm going to show is the long tail cast on. This is a very common cast on. So from your slip knot, you've got two strands of yarn hanging down. You've got your tail, and then you've got your working end. You can kind of pinch your fingers together and stick them between those two strands, grabbing the strands together in the bottom of your hand. From here, you can stick your needle under the loop that's going around your thumb, and then bring the loop around your pointer finger around the needle, and then slide your needle back out of the loop that's in your thumb. From there, you can pull your thumb out of that loop and use it to pull taut. I hope that makes any form of sense. I'll do it a couple more times and you can follow along with me. If the long tail cast on seems a little complex, there's an easier way to get started. This one is called the half hitch cast on. What you're going to do is take only your working end of yarn, that's the end that's attached to your skein, create a loop, and slip it over your needle. Wow, I wish I could explain this better. Does that make sense? I hope so. So what you're doing is creating a loop by putting the working end of your yarn over the end that's attached to your needle, twisting it around so it kind of locks itself in. I hope that also makes a lick of sense. Anyway, now that we've got a few stitches cast onto our needle, we're ready to start knitting. The first thing you're going to do here, scoot those loops close to the point of your needle. From the front of your work, you're going to insert your needle through that loop, going from the front of your work to the back of your work. From there, you can wrap the yarn around that back needle and pull it back through that original loop, so now you have a loop on this needle. Now this stitch, it has been worked and can come off of the original needle, and we will continue across the row. Insert, yarn around, pull through. Insert, yarn around, pull through. I certainly hope I'm staying in frame and lay the plane of the thing. What was I going to say? The first row is always the trickiest, so don't get discouraged if it's a little tight or it takes you a little bit of time to get going. You hear it creaking. Spooky. Continuing in the same way across the row. And there we have our first row of knitting. Super cool. Now we'll move on to our second row. So we're going to put this needle with all the stitches on it back into the correct hand. For me, that is my right hand. If you are right-handed, it might be your left hand. Then we will continue just as we did the first row. Insert our hook Then we will continue just as the first row. Insert our needle from front to back, wrap around, and pull through. Nope, missed that one. You can cut that out, right?
Nope.
True. Alrighty. Wonderful. You'll notice the second row is a little bit easier than the first. And you don't have to pull super, super tight on your working yarn, especially to start. The tensioning, oh my gosh, that got really good, will come with practice. It's gonna be fun for you with the volume. First I whisper, then I shout. Hilarious. What a time. Whoops. There we go. So that is the fundamental stitch in knitting, the knit stitch. The next technique we're going to work on is the purl stitch. The purl stitch is exactly like the knit stitch, but the work is happening on the opposite side of the needle, the side that's closest to you. To work on the purl stitch, we're going to want to keep our working yarn in front of our work. You're going to insert your needle into the stitch purlwise in front of the work, yarn over, and pull through. Insert in front of your work purlwise, yarn over, and pull through. Continuing across the row. You'll notice here that these bumps are now on the side of the work that's facing us. When we flip it around and we look at our work, we can see that there are nice flat loops on the side of the work that was facing opposite to us. How do you explain knitting when it's just so inside of my brain? The next thing I'm going to do is knit this next row so you can really see what I'm kind of talking about here. Now, so you can kind of see the difference in what I'm talking about, I'm going to place one purl stitch in the middle of this knit row. Now I'm going to bring the yarn back behind my work in order to continue knitting. From here, you can see where all of the flat loops of the knitting are on the same side of the fabric. And you can see this one purl stitch, which brings the bump to the front side of the fabric. In the back, you see all of these purl bumps, and then you see that one nice flat knit stitch, which is just because knits and purls are opposite of each other, but they're the same, they're just on the opposite side of the fabric. They're exactly the same. There's really only one stitch in knitting.
Tell them that, not me.
Here I am, I did. People say there are two stitches in knitting, the knit stitch and the purl stitch. In reality, the knit stitch and the purl stitch are the same stitch, just performed on different sides of the fabric. To cast off, I'm going to keep the yarn in back of my work as if I were to be knitting this row. I'm going to knit the first stitch, knit the second stitch, then bring that first stitch up and over the second stitch, knitting the next stitch, whoops, and bringing that first stitch, which was the second stitch, up and over the next stitch, which was the third stitch. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so shaky, I'm so sorry. We're going to continue in this manner until all of the stitches are cast off. And here we have our last stitch. We're just going to keep going in the same way. Here we are. Shoot. There we are. Now we only have this one loose loop on the hook. Then you can cut your yarn with scissors. Slip your needle out of that loop and take that tail and bring it right through so that it kind of locks on itself and it can't come undone. Do you see what I mean? I hope you do. And there you have your cast off edge. Beautiful. Now you can knit. I hope. Thank you for joining me today on this little knitting lesson. I hope you learned a lot. Feel free to rewind, slow me down, anything you need to knit along with me. If you're interested in knitting along with me, check out the Simple Scarf Craft Kit. And if you'd like a little discount on those kits, use the code DARNGOODYT15. Make sure to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. Thanks, bye!